Hello, everyone. Happy Monday night, and welcome to our April Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa book discussion of the most the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise. And tonight we are so excited because Colleen Oakley is here with us, and we are going to discuss this book that we all have been buzzing about this whole month. I'm so excited. So, I'm Lisa Harrison, and I identify as a Louise. And I'm here with my co host, Brenda, who is a Tanner. And Brenda, you want to go ahead and introduce our wonderful guest?
I certainly do because I can't wait. Our guest tonight, of course, is Colleen Oakley, who's the USA Today bestselling author of The Invisible Husband of Frick Island, You Were There Too, Close Enough to Touch, Before I Go, and the hugely popular subject tonight, The Mostly True Story of Tanner and Louise, which came out in March 2023. Colleen's novels have been longlisted for the Southern Book Prize twice, and Close Enough to Touch won the French Reader's Prize. Her books have been translated into more than 21 languages, optioned for film, and have received numerous accolades, including lately Mostly True Story with the Good Morning America BuzzRead choice and the Reader's Digest April pick. She's a former magazine editor for Marie Claire and Women's Health and Fitness. A proud graduate of the University of Georgia School of Journalism, Colleen currently lives in Atlanta with her husband, 4 kids, and a terrier mutt named Baxter. Welcome to Colleen.
Yay!
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Hi, so
Colleen.
happy to have you on.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. Can I just start with the biggest gratitude? Thank you, both to you, Brenda, and you, Lisa, for picking this book, but also to the entire Friends and Fiction book club and Friends and Fiction community, because I have never, ever had this amount of love and support for my books, and it has felt so good. So thank you.
Oh, well, we love you, and our
That's
members
fabulous.
are we are all so excited. People have been posting all day and sharing their favorite quotes and things, and we're just excited that we can actually deep dive into this book, and I think we're the first people who get to do it.
Yes, I have not been able to talk about it. I just been able to talk, just like the little brief overview, and I haven't been able to actually talk about the book.
Well,
Yes,
we're
I
going to
tell
keep
you,
it spoiler free until 7:15, and after that, we will dive in. So, if you have questions for Colleen, you can leave them in the chat, and we also have tons of advanced questions that we have received. So, we're going to have a fun night.
yes, and I would like to get things started before you do your summary of the book, just to talk to you about one of the things I mentioned in your introduction was that you were the Good Morning America pick. And how was it? How did that feel to be on Good Morning America and have that happen?
It was, to say it was wildly exciting is an understatement. It was so exciting. I used to live in New York when I worked in magazines, and to know that my book and me talking was up on the billboard in Times Square was just nuts. It was so exciting. I got to watch it with my family, and we cheered, and it was great.
That's awesome.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And Lisa, I know that you wanted to talk to her about the tour.
Oh, yeah. So I want to know, we were lucky enough to see you at the Atlanta book launch, but I wanted to know, you've been on this whirlwind tour. Can you share some of your favorite moments from your tour and maybe some of the stops? I know a lot of our members came out to see you too, because we have so many great photos.
Yeah, I will say that those are probably some of my favorite moments from the tour, is seeing Friends and Fiction. You guys show up and show out, and it is amazing. Like I said, I've never felt that kind of love. from Dawn and you showing up to my lunch party, Bubba coming flying in, and they've been on this wild road trip. Like, it's just been so much fun. Another one of the highlights is in Charleston. Cassandra King Conroy, Pat Conroy's wife, interviewed me at Buxton Books, and that was a real pinch me moment. I was a huge fan of Pat Conroy, a huge fan of Cassandra's book, her memoir about her life with Pat. And just even being in the same room with her felt crazy. And then for her to be talking about my book, which she read, was just kind of dream come true.
I love that. Well, I do have a little, I think I have a little memory of the craziness of us Atlanta launch party friends.
All I can say is I want to
didn't have fun at all. It was no fun at all.
Yeah, no
we
fun
had
at
a
all.
great time.
I really want to add that tagline to our little logo. We show up and show out.
Yes.
I think you should.
I think we should too.
Oh my goodness. Well, Colleen, I'm so looking forward to talking about the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise with you tonight, and to be able to talk about spoilers. But I have to tell you, it was such a wild ride reading this book. I mean, you think you're guessing, and then you're second guessing, and then you're guessing again, and then it turns out to be something different. It was just so crazy. So with that, would you mind giving us just a little summary for those who haven't read the book, and then they will have to tune out at 7:15 or just turn the volume down?
Yeah, absolutely.
For the spoilers.
So the spoiler-free summary is the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise is about 84-year-old Louise, who has had a hip injury. And she has adult children who insist that she needs live-in care to take care of her. And she does not want live-in care. She's very independent and she thinks she can get on fine without it. But the children insist. And so that care comes in the form of 21-year-old Tanner, who is a college dropout and doesn't want to be live-in care. But her options are pretty limited at the beginning of the book. So she ends up moving in with Louise. They are, happy to ignore each other until one night Louise bursts into Tanner's room at 1 a.m. With a bag full of cash, insisting that they leave town immediately. And that starts them on this epic cross-country road trip where they're trying to outrun the mistakes of Louise's past and the police, who are hot on their tail.
Oh, I just love it. It just makes me smile because, having read it now, it means so much more. Well, I understand the chat is blowing up, Lisa says, so we'll have some questions in a few minutes from the live folks. But let's jump right in because, as I said, we'll be spoiler free in a few minutes. But one of the questions asked in advance was from Meredith Anna, and she would like to know what your favorite character was to write.
Yeah, so that's usually hard for the books that I write, but this one, that's a very easy answer. My favorite character was Louise because she was greatly inspired by my grandmother, and my grandmother had passed shortly before I started writing this book. And so not only was it cathartic, it was part of my grief process, but it felt like I was getting to spend time with her every day. And it was just so special for that reason, but also my grandmother was so funny. And so the little things that Louise says and does, just make me laugh because my grandmother made me laugh. So definitely my favorite.
She was such a hoot. And Meredith also wanted to know, have you ever taken an extensive road trip? But I imagine some of your tour dates have been pretty extensive.
Yeah, so my mom travels with me for every book tour that we've done. And so I think so when we're not flying, we are driving, and that's kind of a road trip in itself. But as far as super extensive, my family and I, my husband and our 4 kids, when they were between the ages of 5 and 9, we drove from Atlanta to Denver, which is 23 and a half hours. And it's
Wow.
also the first half of Tanner and Louise's road trip. So I was very familiar with the different stops they were going to have to make. So yeah, so that's our big road trip story.
Well, you know, that
Aw.
was going to be one of our questions later, but since you mentioned you had made that actual trip, I wanted to ask our book club members if have any of you stopped along the same route to any of the stops as Tanner and Louise did. And I know one of our members mentioned Fort Collins, Colorado, I believe it was. Let me see. And trying to find it. Yes, Fort Morgan, Colorado. Nancy Swenson says she had stopped there and that it was the HGTV's hometown, revitalizing it this
Oh
year.
my gosh,
So
that's awesome. I didn't know that. That's great.
That's pretty cool. While people are putting their answers in the chat, because there is a bit of a delay, I wanted to read 2 comments to you. Leslie Hooten is watching, and she said, Colleen is the real deal.
Oh,
Hi, Leslie.
Leslie.
And we have a message from Christy Barrett. She says, hi, my sweet Colleen. I can't stay long, but I wanted to say nobody loves you as much as me, except for Fred and the kids.
Oh, Christy. Well, I love you right back. I'm so glad you're on.
So we've had, okay, the St. Louis Arch is a hot button place that a couple of people have been to. Maria drove from New York to Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh, wow.
St. Louis, a lot of people have said St. Louis, the Arch. Yeah, I think that's the most popular place.
Yeah. It's a good
Odie
one.
said
I mean,
she's
speaking
taken
of that,
2 road trips from Ohio to the West Coast, 30 days each, and they were wonderful. Wow.
wow.
30-day road trip. Dee, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. 30 days. That's a lot of stops. That's awesome.
Yeah,
no kidding.
that sounds nice. No work
That's
for 30
amazing.
days.
Well, you know, it's funny. My mom once, she was kind of a Louise. Well, her name was Louise as a matter of but she was a Louise, and she took a bus from Massachusetts down to El Paso, Texas, and then to see one of her sisters, and then they took a bus to Seattle. And I just was like, I don't know how they did it. I really don't.
Yeah, bus rides are long.
I know. Absolutely they are. Oh my goodness. So one of the other questions asked, and I'll go ahead and before we start the spoilers and say we already have clamoring for a sequel. Are there any plans for more adventures of Tanner and Louise or Tanner and August, perhaps?
I certainly
We're right at
mind,
7:15. That's
yeah,
okay.
wouldn't mind bringing August back. He's quite the fun character. I don't currently have any plans, but I never say never. I did have so much fun with this book, and I do think there's probably some more antics and stories to suss out from these characters. So we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, we always want sequels.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about, I love the locations throughout, but could you elaborate on why you chose Atlanta to be Louise's home? Like, there were so many like Atlanta shout outs that I loved. Like, I loved her sister went to Georgia Southern. That was my alma mater. So I was like, woohoo, go Eagles while I was reading it. And like the Waffle House and all of that. So it's kind of a 2-part. What made you choose Atlanta as Louise's home? And the second part is, did you have the route mapped out before you wrote the book, or did it go as you wrote? if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I chose Atlanta, because I love Atlanta. I love living here. It's such a great city. And also because it is one setting that I knew. I'm very, very, very familiar with Atlanta. So that just makes it a little bit easier. If we're going to start here and the first couple chapters are going to be set here, that's just giving myself a leg up on the story. And then as far as did I know the route, I did not. I knew where they were going to end up. And it's funny because that's kind of how I write. I know where we're going to start and I know where we're going to end up, and I have no idea how we're going to get there. And it was the same thing for this road trip. I didn't really know how they were going to get there. I knew from our own road trip the few stops that they probably would take, but I certainly had no idea once they got to Colorado how they were going to get there. And so it was a lot of, as I was writing, looking up different towns, Googling, using my Google Maps and figuring out the hours between and what would make sense. So yeah, it was definitely kind of by the seat of my pants as they went across the country where they were going to end up.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because this was a road trip book, but it sounds like all of your books in that sense are sort of metaphorically road trips because you don't know how things are going to turn out. Excuse me. I was so excited I knocked my table. Well, let me tell you, one of the things I really, really enjoyed about this novel is there's so many interesting female relationships. And we have reached 7:15, so we can do spoilers.
Yay.
So book club members, if you haven't read it, turn your volume down and or come back and watch the rest of it later when you've finished. But there's so many great female relationships, and I just wondered, how were any of them difficult for you to explore in the book? There's Tanner and V, who was really an absentee friend, but she's very present, in the story. And then there's Tanner and Louise and George, who, that's another question we'll get to in a minute. But how did you define those relationships, differentiate those relationships?
Yeah, I think really just from my own experience, female relationships have been so important and so integral in my life, all of them, from my friendships to the relationship with my mother, the relationship with my sister, obviously with my grandmother. And so I wanted to honor those relationships, but not shy away from the difficulty of those relationships, because particularly at the age of Tanner, and I know for myself, at younger ages, those relationships can be very difficult and definitely, go through some obstacles. And Tanner is certainly discovering that in her young life. And I wanted to also show the growth, right? So she has some obstacles, she has some difficulty with especially her mother, her sister, certainly with V. And I wanted to show some growth there and show that as you age and you mature, and she certainly was learning with some advice from Louise and seeing Louise and George together, that you can repair those relationships even if you feel like you've messed it up.
That's so true.
Absolutely. I know.
I have a comment that I'd like to read.
Yeah.
Anissa says, maybe Tanner and August go to Frick Island. What the frick?
Anissa would say that.
Mash up.
That's a good tie-in, right?
I know.
That's a good idea. And so I do have a question from the chat. Patricia would like to know, were you or your grandmother a big fan of the Jeffersons?
That's so funny. I have seen it. I liked watching it, on the reruns when I was a kid. My grandmother, I don't think, was ever a huge fan. I'm sure she has watched it too. I just loved the symmetry of, Wheezy and George. I thought that was so funny. And the timing was so perfect because that was, the time of their really close friendship when they were, I can do spoilers now, when they were working together.
Yes. Yes.
So I loved that. And I love to include pop culture in my stories, ubiquitous pop culture that everybody's very familiar with, just to kind of ground it and be like, you probably watched the Jeffersons or of the Jeffersons. And so it's very relatable that they would have loved the Jeffersons too.
I loved the Jeffersons, and I think I still think that's one of the greatest TV show like lead-in songs of all.
So great. And I have to tell a funny story. My publicist, Craig at Berkeley, is obsessed with the Jeffersons, and every single publicity meeting we had, he would start it by singing the theme song. I mean, it was so funny.
Oh, that is hilarious.
It's a great way to start a meeting. So
you should start one with him yelling, "Wheezy!"
Yes.
I wish I could sing, but I can't. So
I can't either. So
I'm sure most of you guys know the tune, the moving on up tune. So that's how it goes. One thing that I loved, but would love to get your take on in this book, was how the names of the book. So typically Tanner is a man's name, but she's female. George, that was the big surprise. Throughout the whole book, we all assumed George was male and she was a female.
We did.
So yeah, that was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. So I was wondering what inspired you to challenge the gender norms with the names in that way.
Yeah, just because I love to surprise readers, B, to make not necessarily a social statement, but a social commentary. If it makes you think, it makes you, when you find out George is female, go, well, why did I assume George was male? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I love that. I love kind of turning things on their head for readers and then make you just think a little bit more. And then also because it's funny, like any opportunity to bring comedy in, I try and take it. So one of my favorite scenes is when, Tanner's Louise is asking Tanner in the hotel room just a little bit more about herself, and Tanner's not really wanting to converse. And when she says that her sister's name is Marty, and then she says, well, what's your brother's name? Jennifer. And I just love that whole, play, and Louise just can't wrap her head around it. And I just thought that was so fun.
And Louise is so realistic, and she's so spunky, and you can just see her there in that room going, well, I just never,
It's that whole
just
today. What is, this is ridiculous.
Oh my goodness.
Well, speaking of Louise, I think, Brenda, did you want to do the poll in the audience now?
Oh, yes, I do. I wanted to ask our book club members whether you're a Tanner or a Louise, so we can see. We already kind of revealed what we are.
I think
you
pretty
knew already.
obvious between us two. I think it's pretty.
Yeah.
And cheers to Louise. I have my cup.
I love it. What are you sipping on, Lisa?
A little peach tea. And by peach, I mean peach schnapps.
I'd expect nothing less.
Oh, that's funny. She sounded so Southern.
I know, didn't I?
And you don't
what
normally.
Is happening?
Yes.
I don't know what's going on.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, well,
okay.
One of the things. Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh no, you go. I'm looking, and the people are starting to put their answers in. So.
Oh, cool. Because I'm really curious about that. So one of the things that just kept me going in this book was how many. I guess you would call them plot twists, but to me, it was just like think it was like mirages, you think something's true and then poof, it's gone. And then something else is true and then poof, it's gone. I just thought that was masterful. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you figure that out, how you pace it, because a lot of the story takes place kind of in the car, with Tanner and Louise, and you just managed to bring out so much in that story.
Thank you. I would like to be able to talk about this intelligently, but I've found that when I try to describe or talk about how I write, it never comes out smart. I have a really difficult time describing how I do it. So, and I think part of that is because I'm a pantser, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, so as I'm writing, I don't outline, and it's like I just intuitively know where the story beats need to be, or where a twist needs to happen or action needs to happen. I try to leave off each chapter with the reader wanting more. So I try to leave off with either a small cliffhanger or something that makes you want to turn the page. And when I say I intuitively know, I don't mean to make it sound like it's easy, because it's not. But yeah, so like I will just write, and then I'll like something will come to me. I'm like, oh, well, that's really interesting. But if it's a twist, then I have to go back and edit to make sure that the twist isn't completely out of the blue. Like you have to have some red herrings, you have to have, some foreshadowing, so that the reader doesn't just have whiplash and go, oh my gosh, well, that's not even plausible. You know what I mean? So it ends up being a lot of, probably a lot more work than if I could outline it. But yeah, that's just not the way it goes for me.
Well, it's really funny. And I have to tell you, because we are talking about spoilers. The funniest thing in the world to me was when Tanner and Louise were sitting there in the hotel at the breakfast bar, and they realized, well, Tanner realizes she thought it was jewels and that she had stolen, and Louise thought it was her daughter Jules.
Mhm.
And I was like, that is just so funny. I mean,
yeah, I have to say my husband was really part of that whole Jules thing, because I didn't want to start this book until I knew kind of how it was going to end. And we were talking about, what she could have stolen, like way back in the beginning. I was trying to figure out everything. And I already knew that her daughter's name was going to be Jules. And he said, what if it was like some big piece of jewelry, like some famous thing? And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And then I was like, oh, like a jewel thief, Jules. And it connected for me. And I thought, oh, if I can pull that off, that could be really, really funny and surprising.
it was amazing.
It was surprising. It was brilliant. It was so good. So funny. There were so many funny moments though throughout. One of the parts I loved was when Louise left and walked her old butt 2 miles to get her hair done. Because she had to look good with her hair done. She paid for it later.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so funny. We have an overwhelmingly response of Louise's in our chat.
Oh, well, yeah, we show up and show out.
Dawn is a Louise, Diane's Louise, Lori's a Tanner, Meredith is probably a Tanner, Maria's Louise, Sherry's definitely a Louise, Barbara's Louise, Arlene's Louise, Bubba's Louise, Devin's Louise, Robin's Louise, Edie is Louise with a little bit of Tanner, Dee is a Tanner, Debbie is a little bit of both. Leslie was a Tanner when she was younger, and now she's more of a Louise.
I could see that.
So it goes on and on. So yay.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, I want to go back a little bit because I think readers will enjoy this, that the story of Louise walking the 2 miles to get her hair done is based on something my grandmother actually did. She
Oh, I
was
love it.
on a trip with her daughter, my aunt, to Egypt, and they were on this train overnight for like something crazy, like 13 or 14 hours. And it stopped in this little town before they were going to get, I think, like a shuttle to this cruise ship or something. They were in the middle of nowhere and they had like a 2 or 3 hour wait. And my grandmother said to my aunt, I'm just going to walk into the town and get my hair done. And my aunt was like, to this town, like, how do you even know that they have like somebody who can do your hair? And she was like, well, I'm just going to go see. And she did. And she walked in to this town by herself in the middle of nowhere in Egypt and got her hair done, sure enough, and came back with her hair completely styled. And I just thought that was so funny.
That is hilarious.
It is. And then the other part of that was it was so hilarious when Tanner thinks that Louise puts on the scarf to be a disguise, which would make sense, given what had happened. But then it turns out her hair just wasn't done. And I just thought that was so funny too.
I have a comment from Sherry that I think is interesting. I love it. She says, I love that the sexuality in the book also challenged thoughts of octogenarians having needs, but I also love that August respected Tanner's no and still pursued interest in her.
Oh, I love that comment.
I
Yeah.
know, I do
Oh,
too.
I do
That's
too.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew
Good
very
points.
early on that I really wanted a love scene for Louise. That was really, really important to me because, just because we age doesn't mean we stop living and doesn't mean we stop having desires and doesn't mean we stop,
Right.
being a full person. And it was really important to me to show that.
Yeah.
Well, that was another scene I loved, how smooth she was. I'm going to slide my money on over with my room key. Do you think you can return this back to me later?
And then
Did anyone else read that with like a little extra sugar, like a little shoulder? When I read that part, I was like, like I was like, you go, girl.
That's all.
Maybe it was just me. Tanner didn't do it like that. I don't know. Maybe Tanner, did you? Oh, I'm so silly today.
Oh, I know, right? We're really losing.
It's Colleen. We're neighbors. Something in the air. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna be serious before Brenda.
You're going to be serious before me?
Before you cuss me out. I'm just kidding.
I do have that ability.
Oh, okay. Back to the wonderful book. Oh my gosh. We do have a lot of Dee said she loved the part with Louise slipping the room key to the bartender. And Meredith said she was definitely cheering for Louise when she slid him the key. So that was a good moment for a lot of people felt that moment. And Bubba said her grandmother would have definitely done that for a hairdo.
I love it.
Oh, that is a hoot. Well, I wanted to ask a follow-up question to something, but I have to pull myself together because Lisa has just.
Well, I went off the rails because, it's me. I'm silly. But I do want to say, Kristen Harmel is watching and she wanted to pop in to say, I loved this book so, so much. Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Kristen. I love Kristen so, so much. And I see, Brenda, you have her new book behind you. And I just got my copy and I cannot wait to read it. I'm so excited.
I do. And it's so beautiful. Let me take a moment.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh.
It is. It's gorgeous.
We weren't planning that, Kristen. We really weren't. I just keep a Kristen Harmel book close to me at all
That's right.
times.
That's
So
right.
Me too,
you
along
don't
with
have to get ready if you stay ready, you know. Um,
well, I have a question, and it's really for Colleen and for our book club members. And it's again about Tanner and Louise. It's such a they just intersperse themselves together so much. What do you think is the biggest life lesson Tanner learns from her friendship with Louise? And does Louise learn anything from having Tanner in her life? I want to hear Colleen's thoughts, but also your thoughts in the chat, because there's so much to kind of unpack there. Because they have this intense experience together. And of course, Colleen, you created them, so you would know best. But it's interesting to see the take that different people have on those relationships.
Yeah, I'm super interested to hear what people say. I think the biggest thing Tanner learns from Louise is that you don't have to have life completely planned out, and you can, kind of roll with the punches a little bit, and that maybe the outcome of that won't be so bad. And she was definitely at a place where she kind of thought her life was over. And I think she learned from Louise that her life really was just beginning. And, but I'm so curious what everybody else thinks about that. And for Louise, learning from Tanner, I just think that, Louise had kind of written Tanner off as somebody that maybe she wouldn't have anything in common with. And I think for her, it was like, oh, just by virtue of being a woman in this world, we all are connected and have something in common. And I thought that was, I don't know. I really genuinely feel that with all the women in my life that, we all have so much to learn from each other, and to, it's so important that we support one another. And, that's really definitely one of the things I think I was trying to say with the book.
Well, it reminded me of, I've had various trainings about the 5 generations in the workplace. And of course, this wasn't the workplace, but it reminded me of that because it took both of them a while to get past that external,
yes,
facade of this is a young woman who's not have anything going, and this is an old lady, and to become the friends that they were.
Yeah, those stereotypes can be hard to overcome sometimes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Colleen, well, I have a few. Meredith said she loves how Tanner learned to be bold and take chances, and she agrees with you, Colleen, on what Louise learned. And Arlene says they could learn so much from each other. And Edie says getting to know each other surprises us about learning from each other.
I love that.
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome. Well, we do have a book club member that is popping in to ask you a question, Colleen. So I'm going to let her on in, and this is Maria.
Okay.
One of our loyal New York ladies that we met in person on our trip. Hey, Maria. She's coming.
Yeah, she's coming.
Going to let her on. Hey, Maria.
Hi. Let me
How are you? I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Let me see. Turn it on. There we go.
There you go.
There I am. Hi. Okay. I'm going to read it because I will stutter. Or okay. The question, basically, on page 4, you mentioned the book in the book "Letters That Changed the World" by Simon Sebag Montefiore. I had to look up his name because you didn't mention it in the book, but you mentioned letters that changed the world. I found the letters you chose very interesting, and then went down the rabbit hole and looked into his book. I feel that it was a perfect way to start your story, It's this letter from George Dixon that Louise gets that puts everything in motion, which has Tanner and Louise hit the road, causing their world to change. What a ride. What a story about friendships, old and new, love of family made anew, and love of oneself and of two. My question is, while doing your research, how do you know what to put in and what not to add to your book? And I love John's Pizza. And have you had it in West Village, the John's Pizza? Yes. Okay. That's my question.
Yeah, I used to live in the Village.
Oh,
And
cool.
I love John's Pizza. I miss it desperately. So yeah, that's a great question because I do so much research for my books. I think that I'm very lucky in that I was a journalist before I started writing because, you know, as a journalist, you do a ton of research and then you only include the parts that the readers need to know, you know, that really forward the story or add to the momentum of the story. And it's the exact same thing in fiction writing as in, you know, as in journalism, is that I'm just including the bits for color and detail that really add to the story, but don't bog down the story, if that makes sense.
Yes, I like the Abraham Lincoln with the little girl, the letter for Baird, and all the others I read. It's like, well, she probably read so much in that book, like she had to take
Right.
out, and
Right.
to take out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and
Great
another
book. I love it.
part of the answer, the rule of three. So generally when you're giving examples like that, you know, like the letters, I chose 3 really strong examples that I
Mhm.
thought, you know, would just, you know, give a good picture of that book.
You play guitar behind you.
Oh, everybody in my family except for me. I'm completely not musical.
Well, Drat, we could have had you playing the theme from the Jeffersons.
That's right.
Yeah. Cheers, I'm having some chocolate wine. My
Oh,
favorite.
yay,
Did you ever try
delicious.
it?
No, I've never had chocolate
Oh,
wine, but I love
delicious.
chocolate and I love wine. So what can be bad about that?
All right. Cheers to Tanner and Louise.
Cheers. Great book. Loved it. Same
Thank
as
you.
Frick Island. Love Frick Island also.
Thank you so much. That means a
Thank
lot. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining us, Maria. And that
Thank
was a great
you.
question.
That was a great question. Thank you so much. Take
You're
care.
welcome. Take care. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Oh, so
Oh,
fun.
I love
John's
Maria.
Pizza all over.
I
again.
know. I love her. So we have a follow-up from the chat. Debbie would like to know, were there parts you struggled with cutting out of the final book? If so, which were they?
Yeah, so that's also a hard question for me to answer because I break so many writing rules when I write. And one of the writing rules, you're supposed to just write, you know, from beginning to end, draft kind of as fast as you can, and then go back and edit. And I don't do that. I edit as I go. So that means when I'm done with what's technically my first draft, but it takes me like a year or a year and a half to get there, there's not too much big editing. I'm not deleting big chunks of the story. I'm not, you know, it's not huge editing because I do so much of that as I go. So it's very hard to say, you know, scenes definitely get chopped or I'm writing and then I'm like, well, that's not going to work. And then I have to kind of go back a chapter or two and fix it. But I can't really think of any scenes or things that I was, you know, had added and then got chopped. And I'm sad they got chopped. Everything that is not there is not there for very good reason.
That's great that you edit as you go, though. That's an interesting proposition. It seems like it would be daunting when you don't have the rest of the story left, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I don't recommend it for anybody.
I think it's awesome. You have your process that works for you, and clearly it works because your writing
obviously,
is masterful.
Thank
So that's awesome. There's a writing tip. There's maybe a writing tip in there, guys.
Well, and the writing tip I really think is to do what works for you and not everybody. I think all writers, even ones who are on their 10th and 15th books, right? we all feel like there's some secret out there that we just haven't discovered yet that's going to make the whole thing so much easier. And it just doesn't exist. Like, you just have to do what really works for you. And it's different for every single writer. So.
Absolutely. I am curious because you said you were a pantser. Have you ever done the NaNoWriMo, the National Novel Writing Month?
I haven't done it technically. I will say my very first book before I go, I used NaNoWriMo as the excuse to jump into it and work on it every day. I had a 3-week-old. My second daughter, Sorella, was 3 weeks old when I started that
Oh
book.
my goodness.
And so I used NaNoWriMo to say, you know what, I'm going to open this document. And I certainly didn't do a set number of words every day, but I did go into the document every day for a month. And that jump started me into writing that book. And that's actually the fastest I've ever written a book. I wrote Before I Go in 6 months, which is, for me, is it definitely, every other book has been at least a year and a half. So I'm a big proponent of that, just because I think it forces you, even if you don't hit your word count, to be thinking of the story and keep it top of mind every day, which is a great practice to get into.
Oh, cool.
That's amazing. We've had several questions several people asked this question in the chat, and we had it in advance question. So I want to make sure we get it in. If you were going to cast Tanner and Louise in a film, who would you cast as Tanner and who? Well, actually, we want to know Tanner, Louise, August.
I want to know August.
The cast T.
I know. I want to hear who everybody else would cast too, because I love hearing people's answers. But for me, for Tanner, I love Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things.
I love her.
She's amazing. And I think, she was in Enola Holmes. I don't know if you've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And she just has such a screen presence about her. And I think she would be a perfect, she could give like the little toot for Tanner. And I don't know, I just think she'd do really well. And then I also love Caitlin Dever, who she's done a ton of stuff, but she most recently,
I love her too.
Is she great? Ticket to Paradise with George Clooney and Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
If you've seen that, she was the daughter who was getting married, and she's just I think she would be a perfect Tanner. And then for Louise, I have so many. There's so many women, amazing actresses in Hollywood that are kind of in that right age range. So Jane Fonda would be incredible. Shirley MacLaine, Maggie Smith would just knock it out of the park.
Oh my God.
Wit. I mean, it's hard to go wrong with some of those amazing actresses for Louise. And August, I really don't know. I have no idea. I need people to tell me who they think for August.
Okay, guys, keep them coming. We've got some coming. We've
got nominations.
Okay, good. Because all of my really, hot heartthrobs, I think, are too old to play August. So, because I'm a little bit older than so I don't know all the young heartthrobs that might be good.
Well, we'll see what we get. But I also want to throw this out there. I want to know who you guys would cast as Leonard. Isn't that her lover?
Yes. Okay.
Louise's lover.
Yes, her lover.
Her lover. Who would be good for that role? So while you're thinking on that, we do have people who definitely have some opinions. Cindy says either Susan Sarandon or Gina Davis for Louise.
Yeah.
Ooh, Gina Davis, yeah.
Bubba says Sally Field for Louise.
Oh,
I
thought of her too.
Meryl Streep for Louise.
Oh,
she can do no wrong, right?
She can do no wrong.
Leslie says Helen Mirren for Louise.
I do love Helen Mirren.
I kind of like her. She's like a girl crush.
Yeah.
Helen Mirren is just aged gracefully and just so beautiful.
So stunning, yeah.
Cindy says Mark for August, but she didn't give a last name. Let us know what Mark you're talking about, Cindy. I'm curious. Pedro Pascal, Meredith said, for August.
He's a hottie.
Or Austin Butler for August.
Oh yeah, he played Elvis, right? He's
Yes,
so cute.
he's very cute.
Yeah.
Patricia says Rita Moreno for Louise.
Oh, I could see that.
I could see that too.
Really good.
Devin says Sam Elliott for Leonard.
Yes.
Oh, this is hilarious.
Yep, we've got a couple of Austin Butlers. A lot of people want. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Good one. That's a really good one.
I also love the Michael B. Jordan shout out in the book too, because I call him Michael Bay Jordan. I think we've talked about this before.
Yes.
And I have a Michael B. Jordan blanket that my coworker gave me as a gag gift for Christmas.
I was gonna say, you don't have it out, Lisa?
It's right there on the other side of my
I was
screen.
about to say, is it a gag gift or is it a real gift?
I think it's a real gift.
When I'm cold, you can snuggle up to a boring blanket or you can snuggle up to Michael B. Jordan and his abs. I mean, who knows? You never know.
Easy choice.
I loved that too in the book. Yeah. Oh, Meredith says, I thought of you when I read. Yep, Meredith, Michael Bay Jordan is one of my boyfriends. Someone said, oh, the comment went by so fast. I don't know which book club member said it, but they said that August is their new book boyfriend.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's the highest compliment an author can get. That's amazing.
It is. Oh my goodness.
Got some gas there for you. If we think of any others, we'll keep on sending them your way.
Thank you. I love that.
Oh my goodness. That's so much fun though, because there are just so many possibilities and it's a whole different experience, seeing the relationship on screen. So that's pretty cool. Well, I hate to even say this, but our hour is almost up.
Goodness.
So we need to allow, I know. It passes so fast that we had so many more questions. But we do want to allow you time, Colleen, to tell us what projects you have coming up. That would be the first thing. What projects do you have coming up?
Yeah, so I am working on a new book. It never ends.
We're listening.
Yeah, I'm about 60,000 words in. So I'll give a little teaser. It's about a 19-year marriage that is on the brink of divorce. And they are eating at a 5-star Michelin restaurant, a very famous 5-star Michelin restaurant, when an underground eco-terrorist group bursts in and takes the entire restaurant hostage. And it's called Jane and Dan at the End of the World.
Y'all heard it here
I
first.
was going to say, just drop the mic. We're done. No.
Jane and Dan, Tanner and Louise.
Oh,
Oh my goodness, that sounds
Would Tanner or
amazing.
Louise would they make a cameo in this book by any chance?
We'll see. I'm not done with it yet. Anything can happen.
Yeah, Tanner might get better at weaponry.
That's
You
right.
know?
That's right. Save the
Or
day.
she could be working as the chef in the restaurant
Yep. She could be
or
doing
something.
Fresh back from Frick Island.
That's right. Her in August from their trip to Frick Island.
I love
Oh my
it.
goodness.
Uh,
Well, Colleen, we also wanted to ask, in case our book club members want to get a copy of the book, where can they get a signed copy or a book plate?
Yeah,
copy?
so signed copies are at Foxtail Books, definitely. Foxtail Bookshop in Woodstock, Georgia, and they ship nationally. And I have left a trail of signed copies everywhere I've been. So if you go to my Instagram and see where I've been, maybe I've been to a city near you and have left a signed book at a book.
See, that's gonna be my road trip. I'm just gonna go looking for signed copies around the country. Tanner and Louise.
There we go.
Well, one other question that we like to ask is what are you currently reading and what have you read recently that you loved or recommend?
Yes, so I'm currently reading The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich, I think her name is.
Mhm.
Really good. I had like 8 people recommend it to me in the same week, and I said, well, I guess I need to read this. But it's really good. It's gripped me. It's excellent. And then 2 books that I've read recently that I highly recommend. I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay. Absolutely blew my mind. I loved her first book, or not her first book, but the previous one, The Great Believers, and I didn't think anything could top it, and she topped it. It was so good.
Wow.
And then another book, Friends and Fiction members hopefully are familiar with Lynn Cullen and her book, The Woman with the Cure. I just can't stop
Yay.
recommending that book. And I actually think it's on $5.99 Kindle deal for those who like an ebook.
Oh,
So go fill up your e-reader because that book is incredible. Historical fiction about the female scientist behind the race for the polio vaccine, who we never hear about, and
yeah.
to the forefront and really brought her to life. And it was very well done.
That's awesome. We're definitely fans of Lynn here. She let the Friends and Fiction book club, she let us do the premiere of the book cover for that book.
Awesome.
Before anyone else. That's the only time we've ever done that. So we were pretty excited about that. And a lot of our members have raved about that book as well. So
So good.
I need to
that
read it. It's on
cover.
my
That
list.
cover is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job with that cover.
Yeah. Your cover is great too. We didn't even get to the cover
I
question.
know.
Good Lord.
I know. I really love. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm gonna. I don't know if it can do it, but I just love the little car with a novel.
Yeah.
But if you haven't gotten it yet, please get a copy because it is awesome. Even if we have spoiled it for you tonight by giving you some of the clues. Well, Colleen, where can book club members find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at writer Colleen Oakley. I'm on Facebook, I think at just, I don't know, I think writer Colleen Oakley.
Somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere you can find me. Google or search Colleen Oakley on Facebook, and I'm on there. And then I'm on Twitter at Oakley Colleen, but I really just don't use Twitter that much. I mean, I'll retweet.
Yeah.
That's never been my jam. So Instagram is mostly where I'm pretty active. So
And you're pretty much done with your tour, right? Or do you have any more events coming up?
yeah, I just have some book clubs left, and then I do in May. I go to Virginia for 3 days and Minnesota for 3 days, and that's it.
Very cool.
Ooh,
We have some Minnesota members, I know for sure.
I know.
Yay!
So you guys
Yeah.
look out.
Show up and show out.
Virginia. We have
Show
Virginia.
up and show out as you do.
We got Virginia, I know Francine, and then Brenda is in. How I remember this, I have no idea. I'm right. Oh, if I'm not. We do have members, so you guys make sure you go see Colleen. And thank you so much for joining us. This has been so much fun. It went by entirely too fast.
So fast.
I feel like we could do 3 more hours. That was amazing. I am so, like I said, just so grateful and so honored. And I love you guys. And thank you so much.
We love you right back.
We love
And I
you.
hope
Right. Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Take care.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
bye.
Bye-bye. Oh my goodness, that was so much fun.
I love her. And I was super silly at some points, but it was fine.
Just at some point.
This book,
But kind of you have to be, because this was a book of just really funny.
oh, so many funny things. I laughed out loud just thinking about her walking to get her hair done. You know, I was like, she is too
And how
old.
did
to be
she do
walking
it?
2 miles.
Step thump, step thump, step thump. And ask someone who has broken their hip and had to use that walker. That's pretty much what it is.
2 miles, both back and forth.
And let me tell you, no way am I going 2 miles to get my hair done, even without a walker.
I'm catching
I'm
a
just
Uber
saying.
or Lyft. I'll stick my thumb out before I do that. Pray it works out.
My goodness. Well, let's hope you're not stuck anywhere and have to do that. Oh, we are getting silly. I did want to mention that our next book discussion will be May 15th with Jennifer Robson and Coronation Year.
Yep.
And
right
what
after
else do
that,
we have?
on May 25th, we've got our happy hour with Ron Block and a special guest
Who shall remain nameless. Just to irk Ron. So Ron, if you're watching,
but he has no idea who it is. Oh goodness.
all
Cindy,
righty. Thanks everybody.
to be silly, especially for this book. Thank you, Cindy. I feel seen. And Anna says it's funny and an enjoyable read. I make notes on my books, and there are so many LOL comments on it. There were a lot of funny
There
moments.
were, and on a serious note, one of the things that was really so true to me, and I don't know if I'll be able to find, well, maybe I have it here. The comment, when Tanner's mother is just so distraught over her not knowing where she is. I don't know if I can find it, but basically she says, that you always behave your worst with your mother because they're the safe ones, the one who will always, love you. And that really struck home with me because that's how it is with mothers and daughters. And that one just really struck me.
Yeah.
Oh, and I almost forgot when we mentioned Coronation Year, we are having a tea party. So get your
we may
favorite.
or may not be in costume or not. Maybe not. Our pinkies will be up with our teacups.
I don't think I can. I have a damaged pinky.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
We'll have our vintage
you guys
teacups.
can join us for the tea party.
That's right. And that'll be May 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern with Jennifer Robson. I'm really looking forward to that because it's just going to take us away to another. To another
and it's so
time.
timely. It's so timely with the king's coronation right around the corner.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And who would have thought in 1952 or whatever, that the queen would be queen for, I can't remember how many years, but it's 70
long-ish.
Yeah. Just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We were so excited to share Colleen with you and the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise. And we will see you next time for our tea party. But be sure, if you haven't read it, to grab your copy.
Yes, and you can get a signed copy of Foxtail. Good night.
And happy reading. And Lisa?
PB&J out.
Night.